My parents were so convinced that my marriage would fail that they chose to skip my wedding and went on a trip with my sister. Ironically, they now find themselves in a precarious situation due to my sister's marriage. 7 years ago, my life took a drastic turn when my parents decided to sever ties with me merely because I stood my ground against their demands and married my husband, Ryan, despite their disapproval. This was one of the toughest decisions I've ever made, but I felt deep down that it was the right one for me. Let me give you a bit more context. Ryan is from another country, here for higher education when we met in college. Initially, we tried to be just friends, but over time, it was clear our bond went beyond friendship. We fell in love and decided to pursue a relationship, which turned out to be better than we ever anticipated. Sadly, my parents didn't see it this way. They disapproved of our relationship from the start, believing I could do better and fearing our cultural differences would lead to problems. My parents actively tried to create friction between us, making it clear that they didn't want Ryan as part of the family. They excluded him from family events, even during holidays like Christmas, while my sister's boyfriend, whom they approved of, was always welcomed. Despite repeatedly pointing out their favoritism, my parents insisted my sister's fiancé was someone they had chosen, while Ryan hadn't followed the acceptable path to join our family. They ignored how Ryan treated me, blinded by their bias. As my relationship with Ryan progressed, I began to distance myself from my parents. It wasn't a choice I made willingly, but their behavior left me no other option. Each time they rejected Ryan, I felt a growing barrier between us, and ultimately I chose Ryan, as my parents had no valid reason for their disdain. Things reached a breaking point when Ryan proposed, and I said yes. Instead of congratulations on social media, I was met with my father's anger. Both of my parents demanded I call off the engagement, saying they would disown me if I didn't. They were clear, it was either them or Ryan. My sister was also let down by my choice, informing me that her fiancé's approval was being questioned in our community, claiming I still had time to reconsider. My parents made it apparent they wanted nothing to do with my wedding, rejecting invitations without hesitation. Although Ryan felt deeply hurt by their treatment, he did his best to reach out, but they had no intention of welcoming him. In contrast, Ryan's parents were everything mine were not. They embraced me wholeheartedly, supporting our relationship, engagement, and wedding without hesitation. Unlike my parents, they saw our love and wanted us to be happy. On my wedding day, there was a part of me that hoped my parents would change, but that hope was crushed when my mother sent a message saying they wouldn't attend, warning me that my marriage would fail. To add insult to injury, they chose to go on vacation that same day and flooded social media with pictures, ensuring that everyone knew they disapproved of my marriage. Afterward, I blocked my parents and sister, realizing they had made their choices clear. Since then, they've not attempted to contact me, still living as if I never existed. Occasionally, I hear news about them through mutual connections, such as how my sister married a man my parents approved of shortly after my wedding. Despite all of this, not a day has passed where I regretted marrying Ryan. He has been an incredible partner, standing by me through thick and thin. Recently, my paternal grandmother, who had sided with my parents for years, reached out. She asked me to unblock my parents, as they were trying to contact me about something urgent related to my sister. Although hesitant, I did unblock them and called my father. After the initial awkwardness, he revealed that my sister's seemingly perfect husband turned out to be a fraud who had scammed them out of their money, claiming he could invest it wisely, ultimately vanishing with everything. My sister had recently given birth, and their situation had become drastic. My father expressed regret about how they treated me and acknowledged their need for family support during this difficult time. They reached out not out of genuine remorse, but because they now required my help after being scammed, essentially making their crisis my problem. In our conversation, my father admitted I had been right all along about Ryan, who had proven to be a good, reliable partner. He then pressured me to support my sister financially during her crisis, seeing as she had nowhere else to turn. However, I firmly believed it was unreasonable to expect me to assist a family that had pushed me away for so long. I clearly outlined that we had our struggles and could not afford to help, especially after being excluded from their lives for so long. Returning to my sister, she later reached out thanking me for my congratulations on her baby and informing me how her husband had vanished, taking their money. She expressed a need for help, expecting me to support her and her child financially until she got back on her feet. During our conversation, I pressed for details and uncovered that her husband had a different life altogether, which made me suspicious of their story. After a few updates, it became clear that my parents and sister were not being entirely honest about their situations. My parents were banking on me to bail them out and cover their financial troubles. I declined, reinforcing that I wouldn't support them, particularly after their past treatment of me. Though I initially listened out of curiosity, I realized I was being drawn into their drama. Now, I have finally blocked them once again, recognizing that they only reached out of desperation, and I need to liberate myself from their toxic influence for good.